new daily segment, 10 Minutes of Awareness, starring me, Cheney Hoke, and my co-host, Joseph Kirchhoff.
Today's segment will focus on the 1975 to 1979 Cambodian genocide.
We will explore various aspects of this widespread violation of human rights, imploring interviews from experts such as survivors and liberators, as well as modern perspective.
The Cambodian genocide began in 1975, and approximately 1.7 million people were murdered. That's about 21% of the country's population.
The genocide was dictated by a communist group named the Khmer Rouge, led by a man named Pol Pot.
Cambodia is an Asian country located on the southern portion of the Indo-Chinese peninsula, bordered by Thailand and Laos.
And now to some eye-opening interviews to give us a better understanding of this tragedy. Hello, I'm here today with renowned historian and Columbia PhD Cami Ryman. Cami, can you give us a brief summary of the events that transpired during the Cambodian genocide?
Sure. So during the period known as the Cambodian genocide, approximately 1.5 to 3 million Cambodians perished in a mass murder operation orchestrated by a communist terror organization known as the Khmer Rouge. Their aim was to create a classless agrarian peasant society. By doing this, millions of innocents were removed from their homes and forced to labor, unpaid, on collective farms where they were overworked and inhumanely treated.
Whom did the Khmer Rouge target?
This terrorist regime specifically killed those inept at extreme physical labor, such as the ill, elderly, weak, disabled, and young. They also massacred journalists, lawyers, doctors, intellectuals, and upper-class citizens who they perceived as a threat to their operation. The Khmer Rouge also targeted minorities, religious figures, and non-native Cambodians.
So, who oversaw or is responsible for this mass murder?
Pol Pot, the extremist leader of the Khmer Rouge, executed and tortured millions in the pursuit of his ideal communist society. However, he had the backing of hundreds of trusted advisors and thousands of Khmer Rouge soldiers.
What role did the U.S. play in the massive genocide?
In attempts to eradicate North Vietnamese guerrilla forces during the Vietnam War, the U.S. dropped over 2 million tons of bombs on Cambodia. These bombs killed almost 150,000 Cambodians and contributed to the hatred of the Western world that helped the Khmer Rouge rise to power. The U.S. embassies in Cambodia did nothing to stop the genocide also.
How was the Khmer Rouge able to gain absolute power in such a short amount of time?
The Khmer Rouge recruited young, uneducated teenage boys at an unprecedented rate. This recruitment was hastened by anger towards Americans, who were responsible for the deaths of thousands of Cambodians, and American affiliation with non-Khmer Rouge government.
Have those responsible for this Cambodian genocide been brought to justice?
Before an extraordinary court was finally set up in 2003, many members of the Khmer Rouge party had already died. Even after the court's establishment, few criminals have been tried, and rumors of corruption plague its reputation.
Now to an inside look on Tong Fang Shu's story about his survival in the Cambodian genocide.
Life was absolutely terrible. I used to live in the capital city called Phnom Penh before the genocide. One day, Pol Pot and his troops marched into the capital city and just made hundreds of thousands of people to evacuate the city. They kept telling us to not pack anything at all, and that they were taking us to a much better and resourceful place. We would later find out that that was not the case. During this long evacuation away from the city and closer to rural areas, many people died. It was way too many to keep count. I soon noticed we were on a field of some sort where crops could be grown. In the days to come, I had to do long, gruesome work in the hot sun from early morning to late at night. The only food we got was a small tin of rice every 2 days. Many people suffered from malnutrition, overwork, fatigue, and disease. All the fruits and rice we grew were always immediately harvested into Khmer Rouge trucks, and we never got any of it. Pol Pot and his party also shut down foreign economic and medical assistance, closed all the embassies, and shut down newspaper and television stations, and they also sealed Cambodia off to the outside world. One of the most memorable and frightening memories I have is one of a little child's father. This small child, no more than 9 years of age, was crying and kept telling his father that he was starving. The father, knowing that he was not allowed to take any of the fruits ready to harvest, broke the rule to feed his son. A guard immediately saw this scene and condemned the man to death by whipping, a process where you whip the victim until he or she dies. The awful guards made us all watch. I was definitely a changed man when our labor camp got liberated. All the things I witnessed and heard make me the new and changed citizen that I am today. I used to be a doctor, specifically a surgeon, before the Khmer Rouge came in, but I can no longer be a doctor when I return due to the lack of steadiness and practice I once had in my hands. I now work at a local grocery store. What made me able to survive is the fact that I kept quiet and kept my head down and out of sight. My friends and people I met were punished to death by speaking out or trying to steal rations. I could not risk that happening to me. I did not want to die there. I knew I could not. I had to stay alive to tell the story of what actually happened here and make sure it never happened again. I promised myself that when I got out, I would make sure my story was heard. I could not stay quiet about such a horrible thing that had happened to me and my fellow citizens. At the same time, I will not raise arms against those in the Khmer Rouge because that will only start more problems. I plan to live out the rest of my life doing a simple job and making sure wherever people face oppression and social injustice, I can do my part and step in to help.
And now to Aaron Hornback providing us with a modern-day perspective on the Cambodian genocide. Could you possibly inform me on why you decided to speak for the victims of the Cambodian genocide?
I've decided to speak about the Cambodian genocide for a number of different reasons. The first and most important reason would be because I feel like it is extremely important in history, as all genocides are. Everyone knows about genocides and the Holocaust, and a lot of people know about the Rwandan genocide in 1994. However, what some people don't know is that there have been countless other genocides all over the world. One of those genocides happened to be in Cambodia. I am speaking up about this tragedy because it and the lives it took deserve to be remembered.
How can we commemorate the Cambodian genocide and those who lost their lives during this time?
Cambodia actually has its own day of remembrance called Victory Over Genocide Day, or Liberation Day, on January 7th. This day commemorates the fall of Khmer Rouge and honors those lost in the genocide and those who sacrificed while retaking their country. But it's not just the people of Cambodia who can help remember this tragedy. I think that it is important to educate today's youth about genocides, seeing as that they are the next generation and the people who will basically run the world in the next 10 to 20 years.
And now to an exclusive interview with one of the courageous people who helped liberate Cambodia. I'm here in Vietnam with Susan, one of the courageous liberators of S21. Susan, tell me about your experience.
Well, I remember walking in and seeing what no person should have to see. Those people were horribly mistreated beyond what my words can describe. I knew I had to help them and fulfill my mission.
Tell me more about December 25th, 1978, and about the invasion that ensued.
The invasion was effective as it put a stop to what was happening, but I'll tell you that it did not come soon enough. We should have invaded a while before. I remember seeing the faces of children and women and just thinking about the thousands that could have been saved if we had intervened sooner.
Can you describe for me the physical condition of the people rescued from S21?
They were all in bad condition, and that excludes no one. It was a horrible sight that I really shouldn't elaborate on. I just couldn't believe that someone would actually do that to someone just like them.
What specific things did you witness at the liberation? What did the camp look like?
Well, we got to see how the regime worked and how they were treating these people. The camps were gray and soulless and looked straight out of a nightmare.
Throughout history, the Vietnamese were always viewed as somewhat co-villains to the whole ordeal. Recently, this has been disproven, and the Vietnamese are now given full credit for the liberation as they were the only ones who did anything to help. How do you feel about this newfound recognition for all of your efforts?
Well, I can certainly say that yes, it was Vietnam that aided these people. I think that if countries were involved, that the genocide of those people could have stopped sooner. I'm just glad that Vietnam was accredited for the effort we made alone.
Thank you for your time, Susan.
Thank you for having me.